By far the most common question I get asked on social media is, where do I start with drumming? Well, this is it. So what we're going to learn first on the drums are the most basic of the drum grooves. Now, if you're not sure what a drum groove is a phrase or a pattern that we repeat while playing a piece of music to set the timing and the tempo. Now let's start with the most basic groove there is, straight quarter notes. So for straight quarter notes, the first step is play your bass drum and your hi-hat together. Then we play the hi-hat and the snare drum together. Now we do those two combinations one more time. And once we've done it 4 times, 2 times on the bass drum, 2 times on the snare, we've done a single bar of straight quarter notes. Now moving on from there, we're going to keep the bass drum and the snare drum the same, but what we're going to do is add a hi-hat note in between each of those combinations. So now we have bass drum and hi-hat, once on the hi-hat, snare drum and hi-hat, once on the hi-hat. And if we play that again, we've completed the bar. So a little bit faster, it sounds like this. So that there is one of the most common things that a beginner drummer will learn when they first get on a kit. But now we're going to take it a little bit further and give you something to practice. So what we're going to do is practice 4 different groove patterns that we can then use in combination with each other to come up with a bunch of other different drum grooves. And each one of these groove patterns consists of only bass drum, snare drum, and 4 notes on the hi-hat. So for pattern number 1, let's take the groove we just learned and cut it in half. Now you can see we've got a single bass drum, a single snare drum, and our 4 hi-hats. And so that there we're going to call pattern number 1. Now for pattern number 2, we're going to do everything the same, but we're adding 1 more bass drum on the second hi-hat note. So let's start again just on the hi-hat, then we'll bring in the bass drum, and then we'll bring in the snare. So there we go, pattern number 2. Now let's do pattern number 3. And this time, instead of having 2 bass drum and 1 snare, we're going to have 1 bass drum and 2 snare. Now the 4th groove pattern we're going to do is going to go back to 2 on the bass drum and 1 on the snare drum, but the 2 bass drums are going to be separated by the snare drum. Here's how it sounds. And so those are the 4 patterns that we're going to use in combination with each other to come up with some drum grooves. And in these groove patterns, we're only playing 4 notes on the hi-hat, which means we're only playing half a bar. So if we're to create a full bar drum groove, we need to play these twice or combine them with one other. Now I'll play each of those patterns as a full bar drum groove so you can get an idea of what you mean, and following that we'll go and look at some combinations. So that was each of those patterns, just played twice consecutively so that it made up a full bar. Now let's do a few combinations. So we'll start with pattern 1 and pattern 2. Now let's try pattern 3 and pattern 1. Sound familiar? This time I'm going to do pattern 1 and pattern 4. Now the last combo we'll do, we'll look at number 4 and number 3. And so as you can see, with those 4 relatively simple patterns, we can combine them or play them consecutively to come up with 13 drum grooves, if my maths is right.
His maths was wrong.
And that's only creating 1 bar grooves. If we want to create 2 bar grooves, we can come up with a whole bunch more. So if you've got a drum kit and you don't know where to start, then that would be my advice. We would start with our straight quarter notes, the first drum groove we looked at. Then we would change the quarter notes on the hi-hat to 8th notes. That was where we were hitting one in between. And then we would move on to our 4 patterns. And trust me, if you just practice those 4 phrases and you get really good at them and you can play them in good timing, you're already going to be able to play along with a load of music, because there's a lot of music that uses simple drumming. Now, one last thing from me, if you're looking at the notation in this video and you aren't really sure what it means, then check out the link in the description, because down there I've put the link for my free drum course on how to count and how to read drumming sheet music. So if you go through that course content and get more of an understanding about drumming notation, you're going to get so much more out of videos like this one. And that'll be it, guys. So have fun and good luck with your practice, and I'll see you on the next one.